Before the war, I lived in a city in Poland by the name of Ra. I had a very, very happy childhood. I had quite a great family and a lot of friends. So enthused about learning that I was looking for anything that I could find to be able to read. And I was a very, very shy child. My sister was very, very outgoing child. And she had the house always full with children. Me, I was always in the book at the end of the house. And I don't know whether we were rich or we were poor, but we had a very, very nice life. Until 1939, September the 1st, planes were all over Poland, or rather Radom, and the houses, they were bombing heavily.
I was born January 25th, 1927, in Rojka, Hungary, which was a small town. I had there were three children, my brother, my sister, me and my sister. My father and mother, my brother in a town, there were three brothers, and they were in the business together. We had a cattle transport business. So this was a small town. There was, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 occupants, and I think only maybe 70 family of Jewish people.
I came from Hungary, where I was born in 1932, in a small town, about population 36,000. It's the southern Hungary, who's the border of Romania and what is now Yugoslavia or Serbia. In the same house where my father was born in 1900. My parents had a bakery that also was started by my paternal grandparents sometime around the turn of the 19th century. My parents believed fully that they are an integral part of Hungarian society. Hungarian society mainly comprised of maybe 70% of Roman Catholic, 10 or so percent of various Protestant groups, and 7.5% Jews.
That we didn't know what in the world to do. My father, before the Germans entered our city, got us 3 passports to emigrate to the United States. But he wanted me and my sister, my oldest brother, which at the time my brother was 17, my sister was 10, I myself was 12. But we didn't want to be separated from our families. After a while, they made a ghetto, and the streets where we lived did not belong to the ghetto. We got a letter from the city hall that we had to leave our home because a Volksgerman, wanted our home. We had to walk to the ghetto, and when we finally got in, we didn't even have a room allotted, and we found an empty basement that was able to get us 2 permits. In order to go out from the ghetto, you had to have permits to go to work for the Germans. And so I myself and my sister, we both of us went to work. I went to warehouse unloading some crates. After going to work, they would kick you and hurt you and beat you. And so they continuously send out people and claiming they're sending them to working camps. Some who were able to escape and came back into the ghetto telling us there were no working camps. Those were liquidation camps. And my father decided for the grandma to come and live with us. While that night that we were all staying in that coal room, Grandma looked over to the right and saw the Germans grabbing from mother's arm, their children, and she thrown them on the floor and killing the mothers. And so my grandmother loosened my hand and started running. And I said, Grandma, where you running? She said, look what's happening here. I want to pick up those children. And as young as I was at the time already 14 years. And I said, oh my God, Grandma, don't you realize what's going on? And I tried to grab her back to go into line. And a German noticed the commotion in our line and came running over and said, what's going on here? And I tried to grab his arm, saying, nothing, sir, nothing, sir. But he didn't pay any attention to me. He turned his rifle around. He hit me really hard, and I fell to the floor. And blood came out. My face was full of blood. I was laying. The next thing I heard was a shot. And he had shot my grandmother. That night, August the 6th, 1942, I was completely separated from my family, not knowing if I have anyone still alive. In 1942, I was sent out from Bradom to an ammunition factory still in Poland by the name of Pianti.
When the Germans came into Hungary, and we were so close to the border, they took all the younger men down to the synagogue. When they came to my house, to my father's house, they said, den Juden, that Jew, the town people came with them to show them where the Jewish people live. He said, den Juden, that Jew we're not taking because he's handy, he's working, he's doing things, because we had also 120 acres of land. So they came that we have to pack up within 3 days, but we can go, we're going to a smaller town. In that small town, my father had cousins, and that was 15 kilometers, I don't know how many miles that is, away from Hungary. We packed up in the house what we could. So then from that house, after a week or two we was there, we went to another house in the same town, in the attic, with the rats and with everything. Then they loaded us on cattle cars or something, and it took us to the town where I went to school, 60 kilometers away. And over there was it's called a ghetto. It was in Győr, G-Y-O-R. And it was surrounded by big fence. There was people there, not just from my town, not from Mosul, from all around the vicinity. We were there, we had a room, my father, a lot of people in the room, just nothing. And we didn't have nothing to cook with or something. And there was a common place where you could pick up some soup, maybe a piece of bread or something like that. We stayed over there, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks. So one day, we looked out of the fence, and my brother was walking with his friends. You know, they walked to work and back. And then one day they said, we leave everything here, just take one suitcase, and we go into a resort. The young people are going to be working, and the parents, on the weekend you're going to see the parents. So we came to the railroad station, and there was Mr. Eichmann. I remember his face. He took care of the Hungarian Jews, Eichmann, Adolf. And we went on, we went in a railroad car, my father, my mother, my sister, and me. The railroad car had probably at least 60, 70 people in there. And then we had a suitcase. I was like my mother, when she wanted to put my sister to sleep or me, she had to stand up, or somebody else had to stand up because everybody was there with their families, you know.
The Germans brought to be the anti-Jewish laws almost immediately after Hitler took office in January of 1933. Later on came one that affected me personally, That is, they declared that Jews may enter only a restricted number, or not at all, to schools of higher learning. Instead, I was admitted to a Catholic boys' school. Now, this is a fine school, but it was catering to people who at age 14, up to 8th grade, they planned to stop their education. And they confiscated, first they registered, then they confiscated weapons the Jews may have had. I remember found a little black handgun, whatever it was. They came and took it away from him. They took away valuables such as jewelry, stocks, bonds, and so on. Again, they came and looked around the house and took what they wanted. We were not allowed to go to a public park or public places, theater. Still, they were optimistic that this is only an interim period.
When we finally arrived to our destination, this time the camp was Auschwitz. It's almost unbelievable to describe Auschwitz. When we arrived, they told us we had to leave everything behind. I didn't have very much. I had a change of clothing and some pictures from my parents, and still some boots that our dad used to order every year. Well, first we were sent into showers, and we were so scared to go into those showers because we felt gas is going to come out instead of water, but they showed us that water came out. When we come out from the showers, all women's hair was cut, and the next thing they did was tattoo us. I was bereft of my name, and I had to answer to a number, A15049. That was the name that I had to have. And God forbid if I didn't hear my name called, A15049. The beating I would get, you can't even imagine. Every few days, a doctor by the name of Mengele, we used to call him Angel of Death, would come by and with a long stick take people to the left or to the right. The people to the left went to the crematorium, the people to the right still had the chance to live. And when he got to me with this long stick, I decided, what's the use? I'm all alone, I'm sick, I lost faith, and I decided to raise my hand, begging him to let me go to the crematorium. He didn't look at my legs or my feet, he looked at my face, and with a stick grabbed me and pushed me back to the right side. He said, you're still young, you still can live. And so, while still in Auschwitz, after a few weeks, I found out that my sister, my younger sister that was 10 years old, had survived, and she was in the agricultural field. The time was already at the end of 43 and the beginning of 1944, and so they sent us out this time to Germany, and the camp name was Hindenburg. While in the kitchen, can you imagine being like in paradise? My sister went to work at the ammunition factory, and I tried to help him, stealing a potato, a turnip, or a carrot, and help the hospital. And then my sister and some people from my hometown. And I would put it outside, and then after we go close the kitchen, I would go back when it's dark and pick it up. And we were going to be again sent out from there. And this time, how can I ever describe the pilgrimage from Hindenburg to Bergen-Belsen? Almost impossible. Again, we had to go on foot to the trains. And when we finally arrived in Hindenburg, my God, no matter where you looked, right or left, All you could see is corpses.
So we came to a place, my mother was all broken up, my father from the trip. We came to the place, they opened the wagon, and they say, rouse out, leave everything what you have, leave it like it is. And then it was said, Arbeit macht frei. We were in Auschwitz, or we didn't know whether we were in Auschwitz. Especially the Hungarians, we didn't know nothing. And then said, the men go, like I was standing here, the men go this side to my left, and the woman to the right. So my father went by himself, but with the other men, because my brother was not there anymore. But my mother wore glasses. And my sister, we went with my mother, we went and we came to, and then we saw Arbeit, and the music was playing, and maybe there was smoke, I don't remember. I was young, you know, the air, and then people were behind fences. They didn't have no hair. We didn't even know if it's people or animals, what is this? I really didn't, where I am. We had to walk, and we came to a man, it supposedly was Dr. Mengele. And my father left, never saw my father. And we went before Dr. Mengele, and it was my sister, my mother in the middle, and I here. He pushed me to the right. He pushed my mother to the left. My sister was with us, and then we walked to a big room, and over there they said, hang up your clothes very nice, because when you finish, so you find it, and put your shoes underneath. In the meantime, they shaved us, our hair, everything they shaved us. The truth is, when I saw my sister shaved, I didn't know it was my sister. I didn't recognize her. Then we didn't get our own clothes anymore. They threw us, you know, because when we came to Auschwitz, they took our clothes away. And there was a special commando who opened the suitcases, also Jewish people, and they selected the clothes. They were looking for gold, for silver, they were looking for something, you know. They also knocked out the gold teeth if people had, you know, in their mouth, they knocked it out because, and so then we came to a barrack. We walked, it was that called Birkenau, from Auschwitz to Birkenau. You can walk it, it's not maybe 2 kilometers. And my sister stayed with me one night. There was a barrack, 600 women. On one side, then was a corridor, and there was 600 other ladies on the other side. So then in the morning we had to, there's no bed, nothing, just a plain floor, but not floor like this, cement floor. And we had to sleep there or lean on or something. And 3 o'clock in the morning, they brought you some soup in a garbage can. Sometimes there was no utensils. No utensil wasn't, I mean, just a cup. The first one got the cup and then, you know, handed down to the fifth one. You were lucky, yes. And sometimes, when they always came with dogs. And sometimes, most of the time, they spilled out the whole garbage can, and then you should see all our people on the floor try to get some food. And then they gave you a piece of bread like this, and later I found out it was sawdust in there. So after one day, my sister slept with me one day. My mother was not there anymore, you know, she was on the other side. Of course, like maybe it was Tuesday, so I thought Friday, Saturday, we're gonna go to see my mother. So then came again, and we were selecting people. They told them they're gonna take him something. I thought they're gonna take my mother. And I had my aunt with me and another friend, which I know, and we let my sister go. And I let my sister go, but they did not take her to mother. Later, I tell you what. So I was there, I was in Auschwitz 6 weeks, doing nothing, going back and forth. They selected 500 women from that barrack. And they said, we're going someplace. We didn't know where we're going. And we went outside and waited, and all of a sudden, far away, I saw a bunch of people walking. And one was my sister. My sister was, I think, 6 weeks in Auschwitz, 6 months. I was only 6 weeks. So that was my sister, and the first thing she was asking, did you see my mother? You know, she thought she going to my mother, and I thought she. So anyway, so we left again in cattle cars. I don't know how many days it took. We went to Westphalen, to West Germany. We went to Lippstadt, which was a small town, but there was a big munition factory, and there was 500 women, and we worked 12 hours shifts, 1 week from 6 in the morning to 6 in the night, and the next week from 6 night to 6 in the morning. The factory was going 24 hours.
3 trainloads of people were organized and selection of who goes on which train, to the best of my understanding, was totally at random. The first train load with 299 people went to Auschwitz. Included on that train were 2 of my very good friends at Szeged, you know, where these 10,000 people from the surrounding counties were collected, were lying on the ground on a blanket next to me. They got there and they never came back. So we got to Austria, to a concentration camp with 20 miles or so outside of Vienna, or Strasshof. There were about 20 or so thousand Jews collected there. And including us. This is where I lost my grandfather and grandmother. I don't know how old he was. He may have been about 70, but he had prostate cancer. And I remember my mother and my aunt and my grandmother were begging the guards that he needs medical help. And they told him, oh, well, it is quite possible. He just bring him to this clearing in camp where they showed us where they are going to have trucks there to pick up the sick, to take them to the hospital. And we all did it, and they put him up on the trucks. I remember even seeing my old, almost blind rabbi on the trucks, and he was still giving his blessings to the crowds there. There was no hospital. They were just taken God knows where and killed. Because we never knew about it until after the war. We were taken to 2 slave labor camps in Austria. One of them was near a small town that I can't even find on the map. I couldn't even find it Googling it. It was called Gatterschlag, small village, next to which there was a stone quarry. That is, they blasted rocks out of the mountainside. They gave us sledgehammers and pickaxes and wheelbarrows to break them down to smaller pieces and take them to a crushing machine and just crush them further so that they used it for building roads. Now these sledgehammers are the same size like we have here. I was 12 years old at the time, and I remember I was very proud of myself that I could swing it. Our room had 32 people living, all from our hometown. And these 32, for some odd reason, could and did stay together almost to the end. For food, we got potatoes, vegetables, and bread. That we were not starving. No meat ever, no vegetables, no fruit or the kind. But we weren't starving. Sometime in September, though, they moved us from Gatterschlag to a western Austrian town called Gross Sickards. By the time we got there, they put us up in a factory weaving carpet and other woven products, which was good because you were protected from the elements. It was also good that the work area was also indoors, protected from elements, which again, huge advantage. But we had three huge problems also. The first one was starvation. I mean, I was 12 years old, going on 13 here. And the only thing we had more of than before were fleas and ticks. You know, they bite you, they get infected. We remained here until early April 1945, when they stuffed us, and this was really stuffing us, into boxcars.
While we were still at Bergen-Belsen, a big tank drove in, claiming they're from General MacArthur's army, and they are our liberators, and we are free. And they start throwing care packages. Unfortunately for the people who grabbed those packages, hardly 90%, I would say, did not survive. Our stomachs were not used to that good food, and by overeating, they got diarrhea, dysentery, typhus, and just died. They decided to ask us where we want to go, and I and myself and my sister, we didn't know what we really want to do, because I didn't think I had anyone left in Poland. And so, while my sister was still under 16 years, they decided that if she would like to go with the children transport to the United States. I was already 17 and a half, and so I could not qualify to go with her. And so my sister gave up her visa and wouldn't go without me. Meanwhile, while we were still in Bergen-Belsen, we heard rumors that our brother, my oldest brother, had survived Mauthausen and was liberated by the Americans. And he heard word by mouth that we survived. He didn't know exactly where. So on foot, he walked from one camp to the other till he found us in Bergen-Belsen. And so the two of us and my brother went back to Stuttgart. While in Stuttgart, another organization offered my sister this time again to go to the United States. And this time she said she wanted to, because my brother convinced her that she's going to be with me. And so she left in 1946 for the United States of New York. I myself and my brother, we registered with the American consulate, and when our visas came in, we had to go through a medical examination. They found out that my brother had tuberculosis, and so he was not allowed to come to the United States. This time I decided that I'm going to stay with him. I didn't want to come by myself, and so I lost my visa. After a while, my brother decided the only way for him to be would go to Israel. He got to meet some people from an organization, the Haggadah, from Israel, and they smuggled him out one night, and he left me a letter behind that please go to the United States. And so I went and registered again with the consulate. It took me 4 years almost till my visa came in. So in 1950, I came to the United States.
We came to a town which is called Kaunitz. From Lippstadt to Kaunitz, I think it took us 3 days. It was Easter Sunday, 1945. It was in the morning. And they put us in a big, like a football field, I mean, a soccer field, but not like here, but And Hans and all the German soldiers, they were with us, they stood in the middle, and they, with the guns and everything, and they said, if we're not going to be quiet, we're going to shoot you all out. But in the meantime, they heard somebody's coming, the Americans coming. And the Germans were not in the town. They had already out on the roof, they had white flags on the roof. and this, you know, that they gave up, and then came the Germans left, and came the Americans, and I was lucky that I was liberated April 1st, 1945. Lucky.
We were liberated from there on May 9th, 1945. Interesting enough, the day after the Germans capitulated to the American commandants in Berlin or wherever. It took us 6 weeks to get back to my hometown. I don't know why it took so long, but it did. Needless to say that anyway, after some organizing, Mother did open up a bakery again, and everything was going, slowly but going, until, I can't remember the year, when our bakery was nationalized. Because Mother was a war widow and having 2 war children, they didn't nationalize our bakery immediately. But a few years later they did. So they hired Mother as a sales girl in our shop. They arrived here Christmas Eve of 1956, and 1 month later I got my job in Corpus Christi in a refinery where I worked for some years, after which I went to graduate school at Rice in Houston to get my PhD in chemistry. Following that, except for 1 year in New Jersey, working for DuPont, I spent the rest of my active life in San Antonio, working for Southwest Research Institute in fuels and lubricants related projects in chemistry.